Hello and welcome to the Colossians 2:7 Podcast in English. Du hörst gerade eine monatliche Folge für unsere Freunde in den Staaten. While our regular listeners are primarily German, we are delighted to have a growing number of listeners from the States as well. Odds are you know us personally, and I want to thank you for tuning in. In this special episode, we invite you, dear friend, to join Willi and me as we engage in thoughtful conversation about life and ministry within the German context.
You're thinking of a cold open you can't think about it. And by thinking about it, you almost burnt your finger on the mug.
Well, I actually hurt my finger at work.
Oh, you hurt your finger and your eye.
Yes, and my foot. Well, this was like one of the very last customers, as it is, and he wanted, in German they're called Randsteine, which are, they're kind of like dividers you have in your yard between the flower bed and like the grass.
Yes. And then you can also go with your lawnmower wheel on that, so you can cut your grass.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Shows you how much I know about garden work.
And about the stuff that you handle every day.
Well, the smaller ones, they're rounded at the top.
Yes.
The heavier ones are not rounded at the top.
Correct.
So we have from 5 centimeters and a meter long and 20 centimeters tall, which is in inches. I'm not quite sure.
It's about that much. I mean, that's where we show it.
Yeah, about what I show. That's what that is. And those are quite light. But then we have like 10 centimeters, which is about 5 inches, about 4 to 5 inches. Half a meter. So that's what? 20 inches?
1.5 feet.
1.5 feet. Then times a foot, times a meter. So these big cement blocks. And people get them all the time, especially right now. It's springtime. So they keep on getting them. And the bigger those get, the heavier they are. So I think the heaviest we got is about 140 pounds. But today, 100 pounds fell on my foot.
Oh.
Yeah.
You should wear steel toe.
Oh, I do.
Oh, good.
But you know where it falls?
Not on the steel.
Not on the steel toes.
Well, you should drop them there. I mean, seriously, why do they pay you?
I don't know.
That's why you can't have nice things.
So then, as I'm limping back to my supervisor, I said, "Yeah, I hurt myself a little bit." And I said, "Oh, and by the way, I got some dust in my eye, like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's still there. The eye's getting a little red and irritated." So he wrote it all down in case I decide to be sick next week.
Yes, that's smart, because then it's not gonna. Somebody else will pay for it.
Yeah,
That's true.
but it's nice when there's pros and cons in a social system. One pro is that you get a lot more vacation.
Yes.
And sick days, you get paid sick days.
Yes.
And sometimes you need a sick slip, sometimes you don't. Even if you need a sick slip from the doctor, you simply say, "Hey, I'm sick," and then
Correct.
You're sick.
Yes.
And so this year I missed about 2 or 3 weeks because of sinus infections.
Each month, it seems.
I was sick for a while, yeah.
Yeah.
But the last time I used vacation was actually last week. That's when we went to that pastor's retreat.
Yes. The pastors of our fellowship.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's something that it was not one of our regular pastors' meetings.
Correct.
But this is something that started a few years ago. And it was also a result of when the missionaries, they had like a legal recognized club on the German side to handle all the legal stuff and the paperwork and the money and the funds and that kind of stuff. And so something that happened in 2022 is that as many of these missionaries were now retiring, the national pastors, they've had this desire to have the same kind of thing we had before with the BMM missionaries, having their German counterpart for the paperwork and all that stuff.
Correct.
Mostly dealing with the camps.
Yes. Well, that was one of the reasons. Yes.
But have that by Germans, led by Germans, and in many ways taking over those responsibilities.
Correct.
And when I tell my mom about that, she's thrilled because she will always say that's what the idea always was.
Yeah.
The idea was always to work yourself out of a job. And if the churches have multiplied and grown in autonomy and independence, even enough to replace different administrative roles that missionaries had.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yes. And it has really there was a need for it, and it was needed to be done. And so they needed 7 people, and it was not only pastors that joined that organization, so to speak, but it was 7 people, and it's now a missions agency / camp / service for the churches. And now that has developed more and more, and one of the things that this organization is doing is trying to help the pastors to also get some time away. We usually have our pastors meetings 3 times a year, in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. And now the one in the spring is, or in the fall, I don't know, one of them is now replaced with that timeout. They put us in timeout, so to speak. And it's not, and so we get together, and it is actually paid for, which is really nice. And we stay there a couple nights. We have food there, and then we just get together and talk. So when we got back to our church, and when I got home, I told Heidi and I told people from our church, because they prayed for us, and they said, "Oh, did you get some time off?" And no. Actually, I went to bed later than normal.
Yeah.
And I talked the whole time. It was not just a rest and relax time.
It was not a restful time.
No, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was very encouraging, but it was a time to talk because we were actually not interrupted by the daily tasks. And so that was nice.
If we could back up just a little bit, the reason why
Beep, beep, beep.
the reason why we didn't pay for any of it was because that organization paid for it.
Yes.
And because I'm one of the founding members of that organization, when we come to the business meetings, we also look at the financial aspect and find out how they finance a pastor's retreat for. We were 18 pastors.
Was it 18?
18 pastors, 2 nights. I mean, how do they finance that? And is through interest. Because
interesting.
Your dad jokes are getting worse.
I know. Well, I'm maturing in my being a dad.
And do you know what makes a dad joke a dad joke?
No.
When it becomes a parent.
You're working on it. Okay. Not bad, not bad.
But the people listening might have heard of Camp Maranatha.
The ones that have been in touch with the ministry of our churches, yes, I would assume they've heard of it.
Maybe, yes. And that was that administrative organization that handled a lot of our retreats, our camps, and all that stuff. And it was located at Bad Heilbrunn in a wonderful old building. That's where the local church there had their congregation and also where the pastors lived.
Yeah.
Not that they had multiple pastors, but over the decades,
Correct. Yes.
they lived there.
Yeah.
So there were inspections, and it would have costed a lot of money to bring the building back up to code. And so then it was a tough decision by the BMM missionaries. What do you do with the building?
Yeah.
Do you invest all that money to make it useful again? And is it maybe more wise to sell the house and the property, and then the funds you have from that, for one, you can give to the church so that they can find a new building, have rent lined up for a few years. And also, you have that money set aside for the now Mission Mensch, the mission humanity.
People.
Mission people. People mission. M&M.
Yes.
So is it better if you have that money and you set it aside for this new organization that was founded?
Which one of the things that we want to actually get with that is get our own campground, which is quite expensive, but it is one of the goals to that we have to have our own, because everywhere else where we go, it's either too expensive or it's too small.
And so some of that money from the sale is now we get interest for it, and that interest is enough to pay for the pastor's retreat.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So when I saw that on the paper, I was like, oh, that's how they're doing it.
Yeah,
because I didn't know how they were doing it either.
Correct. Yeah. We have this pastor's retreat, and we get together and we just fellowship. We sing. We have a spiritual input. But the goal is not a conference in the sense that we hear messages the whole time and be encouraged that way, but more to talk about topics, things that really, as pastors, are on our minds or maybe work in us right now, and also needs for our churches.
In the past, we would either a topic came up. And as pastors, we discuss the topic.
Correct.
That can be anything from something organizational to something theological, and that we see as a threat to our local churches.
Yeah.
But then we also brought up the topic of Bible colleges or Bible schools. Is there a need for that? And is that need already provided right now through a few schools that we do have in our fellowship? First of all, outside of our fellowship, we have the EBTC, the European Bible Training Center.
Yes.
Which
is the Masters University European counterpart. It's their partner.
And they have a few different locations in Europe. Berlin's the big one. I don't know if it's the big one or not, but
Berlin was the first. They have 4 in Germany now, but none of them are in the south. So it's at least 4 hours to drive from our churches.
Yeah, and so because of that, it's a good school, and we would support it full-heartedly. Simply because of the distance, there are some alternatives that we have down here in the south, and we have 2 of them. One is in the north and one's in the south. The one in the south is in connection with our mother church, that's Ingolstadt, and then Landshut.
Yeah.
That's the GBS, which means it's the
Church Bible School.
The Church Bible School, thank you, yeah.
Which, a little background to that, it started out, I'm not quite sure when it started out. I remember back in 1999, when I joined the church in Ingolstadt.
That was the end of the last millennia.
That it was, yes. And even longer, probably. And we had Charlie. He was a pastor of the church, missionary. He started the church. And then there was Todd Daly, who was a missionary at the church, not a pastor, but he was the Bible teacher. And what he offered back then was Bible courses. So we went through soteriology, we went through eschatology, bibliology, and all those courses. that is actually where Christoph got all his Bible education through that. Then Todd also went to, and that was offered to the whole church. I think it was Tuesday nights. And then Todd moved to Bad Heilbronn, Bad Heilbronn, and there, and I might be off a little bit timing wise, but I know Joachim also got his Bible training through Todd.
Ah, okay.
At least a big part of it. So there was that going on for years, and I remember when I went to Faith, I wanted to come back to start a church, and while I was at Faith, I was in touch with Christoph, and we were talking, and I said, it will be fun to actually put theology back into the church as teaching it. And so we went through with our church in Ingolstadt. We went through a systematic theology, and it was somewhat of a fast paced, because it was, I think, one doctrine per month or for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is quite, compressed. But we did Sunday school, we did Bible study and all that with them. So, and somewhat at the same time, I'm not quite sure when TTZ started, the North part started as well. But just to give a little background to the GBS, the Church Bible School, so we had it back in the day, and that was actually really good and helpful, and that is still going on.
I didn't realize that you didn't start it, but you were one of the ones that encouraged to continue it in the churches in the South.
Yes, and it was Christoph's goal.
Yeah.
Little off the record. The goal was that Todd would come back.
Oh.
And then Todd and I would have worked it out. Yeah, so it was, and Christoph probably did it not as a course, as far as I know. But I would have to check when they started. Maybe we're off time-wise, and maybe they did it the whole time while I was gone. I don't think so. I think it started up again later on, and then with different teachers.
I was in Berlin, so I didn't catch any of that. And these missionaries, we called them uncle and tante.
Yeah, which is aunt.
Yes. So we had a family relationship to them, but never was really part of their ministry, or even really got to know their ministry down here.
Yeah.
And so when I moved here to Bavaria in 2019, I come to realize how much people had high regards for many of the missionaries that were here. Jeff Brown, I always knew him as Uncle Jeff. But not only did he help start Nuremberg, but then also this theological training center.
Yes.
And that's the northern counterpart to the Church Bible School.
Correct.
Which, in the past, am I wrong in saying that it saw a need for training people specifically for ministry?
Yes, I would say so. Yes, because Germany has Bible schools, and you can debate about how good they are. I would say there are a few Bible schools that I looked at, and I decided to go to the States.
Yeah.
And so those Bible schools are still there, and without saying names or saying if they're good or not, but we said, okay, we need Bible school. We don't want people to just leave. Some were worried that if you go to the States that you would stay there. That's what they were worried about me. Then they are worried if you go to a different Bible school that you might have different doctrines. Or if you go to Bible school, then you would suddenly think you should go somewhere else instead of coming back home to your church.
Yeah.
So, of course, you you don't want to send people out for 3 years or 4 years and then they will not come back. So how can we train them knowing that they will be where they are needed? Because it's not that we have enough people that we can just send them out to go to different places. And no, we need the people. We need leaders in our churches, which is the topic that we talked about before, which is hard to get. Mark.
It's the fear that I think some people will have is you invest all this time and energy in a young man, and then you go and say, let's send him to get biblical training at one of the Bible schools in Germany.
Yep.
And then that's where you lose this person.
Yep.
Because one of the first statements you will learn in several Bible schools and colleges in Germany is the Bible is not true.
Well, they would not word it like that.
They would just say it's not accurate.
They would say the Bible entails God's word, and let's look at all the inconsistencies.
Yes.
And now, there are not every Bible school does that. I would say there are a few that don't, but there are some, and you might say the major ones because they're connected to bigger conventions, and a lot of them do that. Yes.
And so you are afraid that they will go to a university and get their brain full with knowledge that is not helpful for ministry.
Correct.
And even creates doubt in the sufficiency of Scripture.
Yes.
And so what alternative do you do? And that's where you have our two Bible schools here in Bavaria, the one in the north, one in the south.
Yeah. And so what is so different about those two? Because when we say Bible schools, it's not that it's an institution where people go for 4 years and stay there during the week and then go a week back home on the weekend. So what is the big difference to that?
It's going to be taking it a bit more slow, a bit more directed towards one topic or one doctrine in a semester. And a semester means about 3 months. You are meeting on Saturdays, and you will spend about 4 to 5 hours on those Saturdays going through bibliology. You have homework, you have assignments, and then after those 3 months, then you go over to the next topic. And so it's meant to be something that is not a school per se, not a college like many listeners in the States are probably thinking of. Maybe like night school, closer to like night school, but it's meant to be something that goes along your daily schedules, your work schedule, so that on top of that, you can take time aside once a month for a few hours to be focused in on one particular doctrine or topic in the Bible.
Yeah. Now, what you described was actually GBS.
Yes.
Now with TTZ it's a little different. TTZ is the Theological Training Center, and that is in the northern part of Bavaria. And there they actually offer multiple courses in a semester and taught by different teachers. And ideally, the idea was to do it at the church where the teacher is at. And now they also offer the opportunity to do it online, and which is really good because that way our people can also participate. Because a lot of times, one of the things that hindered people in our church was Saturdays were quite full, and so they didn't have the capacity on Saturdays to be there, or it is just too far to drive. Driving an hour and a half to go for an hour. Having a Bible study or a Bible course, it's just a lot. Now with the remote studying, they can actually participate without having the drive, and so that opened up a lot of opportunities. And also, they don't have to because if they have to drive, they might have to get off work early. And so if a couple is doing it, well, what happens to their child? So all those things were I would say it all developed over the years, and it is more catered to the local church. And I would say the TTZ and the GBS are both supporting the local church and substituting where the local church might not be able to do it. So at the pastors' retreat, we were talking about that. Do we have a need for Bible schools, Bible colleges? And now, if we would put those two, the Church Bible School and the TTZ, in that, well, I cannot spend more time because I don't have the capacity to prepare. I don't have the capacity to teach, and so yes, I'm lacking here. So I can send them to that, but I don't have to send them away, because one of the main things that we said earlier, what is the danger with sending somebody to a Bible institute, is that they are disconnected from their church, and then also that they see suddenly God moving in a different way without their local church.
Yeah.
And so a big part, I would say, the Bible does not talk about Christ will build his Bible college. Christ will not build his seminary. Christ will build his church. And I believe that is the main focus of the New Testament. And I would say that is also where the main equipment should be. That's why Ephesians 4, it says, and he gave them pastors, teachers.
Yes.
And it was not he gave them Bible colleges.
Nope.
And when I was in Bible college, I mentioned to one of my professors, it's sad that we need a Bible college. He was not quite as thrilled about that I was. But the statement is still true, in my opinion. I value Bible college very much, but it is sad that we need it, that we do not have the capacity, the teachers, maybe even the fully supported teachers at your church, that they can actually offer all that in your church. Now, we don't have that. So we need to substitute that. And in Germany, there are certain Bible colleges where people go to. Then we have the GBS and TTZ, and that doesn't disconnect them from the local church. They still serve at their church. They're still under the authority of their pastor. Yeah. And now in the States, it's a little different, but we can talk about that in a minute. You haven't said anything in a while.
I was eagerly listening to what you were saying.
That's a podcast.
I was excited too. Now, I mean, as many freshmen do, you go to a Bible college, and you want to rebel right away, and you want to question the logic behind the rules. You want to question the authority and
since when is there a logic behind the rules?
There's
a reason.
There's a reason, not necessarily logical, but there is a reason.
Okay.
And then one of the questions that at least when I was a freshman, I did not ask this question, but I heard other people ask these questions, is there shouldn't be a need for a Bible college because the local pastor should be the one teaching everyone. And as a philosophy, I don't think we're opposed to that.
Yeah.
It's just how do you practically implement that where it's difficult.
Yeah.
In our case, we both have jobs. So we cannot be part-time or full-time at work and then have a family at home. And then on top of that, have counseling that you do throughout the week, discipleship throughout the week. So you are investing a
sermon prep occasionally.
Something like that, yeah. Well, that's why you have ChatGPT. It opens up a lot of space now
That's right.
for free time.
That's a really good question. I'll get you a sermon sounding like.
And so there's simply not enough time in the day or in the week to have time set aside for teaching specifically doctrine.
Yeah.
Now, ironically, in our church right now, that's what we're doing Wednesday nights.
Yes.
we are teaching systematic theology. It's deeper than simply like a Bible study, so it does have aspects of like a Bible school. But I mean, you're not teaching all of it. I'm not teaching all of it.
Yeah.
We're trading off doctrines. And so I know for when you're going through soteriology, I have a few months before I need to figure out what I want to be teaching.
Correct.
So that kind of stuff is possible. But to have the time and the energy to invest even more time is something that can be very, very challenging.
Correct.
Especially if you want to teach everything.
Yes.
And so that's why one thing I like about TTZ is that the teachers are all the teachers pastors?
I believe so.
And so these are pastors, but they're not teaching everything. They have specific topics that they teach, so they have expertise in that sense.
Yeah.
And in many ways, with the GBS down in the South, likewise, not just one person teaching everything, but the teaching responsibility is shared amongst different pastors or people who have been taught themselves.
Yeah.
And so that is a lot more possible way of making sure that your congregation is being fed, not simply through preaching and Bible study, but deeper and systematically the doctrines of the Bible.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with studying it all out, but there is a certain benefit if you have taught it for a few years, certain topic, or if you actually studied it in more depth. At a Bible college, the professors usually have certain, just like every pastor, every person, you have certain areas where you just spend more time on, and so. But as a pastor, if you're the teaching pastor, or if it's the two of us, there's only so much we can prepare for, and so therefore there's a certain benefit with going to a Bible college and having all that. Now, if you compare, well, it is maybe hard for the American mind to understand the whole Bible college controversy, maybe, if you want to see it that way. A German does not have a real benefit of going to Bible school in Germany.
No.
Nor does he benefit going to a Bible school in America. So, in America, you benefit from it. I'm not talking about the spiritual sense. So, yes, of course, you benefit from that. Duh. But what you don't benefit from it, you do not... I mean, yes, you get a degree, which you can put in your pipe and smoke it. Do you say that in English? No, you can cut that out.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Well, so if a German goes to America, like I did, I got a bachelor's degree. That, yes, I can. When I apply at a job, they can see I got a bachelor's. Now, but it doesn't help me in a big sense. If I get a master's, it doesn't help me. There's nothing where I can say, hey, I went to Bible college and I got that degree or that job. So in America, yes, you do. Then you have, maybe you have an associate's degree if you do the 2 years, or you have a Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts, or then you get a master's and go up to MDiv. But in Germany, it doesn't help you. If you go to a German Bible school, you don't have anything to show for. So therefore, yes, even if it is accredited in America and in Germany, still it does not help you.
The question is then, who cares?
Exactly.
No one's going to care.
Yes. So, and then some will say, well, you don't have to because you want to be at a church. Yes, exactly. So what is the benefit of going to Bible college, being in debt for another 10 years after that? And then, so you actually have to, for the Germans, it is a much bigger step to say, okay, yeah, that's worth it. Because you can't really pay it off. You can't, in that sense.
Yeah.
But of course, the benefit of the depth of the studies, and I would say Bible college is in more depth than what you do in church. What I usually would teach in church is probably not as deep as right now the soteriology that I'm working out. Just because I know there are people that they have questions.
Yeah.
And if I go through material, it will not answer those questions because it gives you a basic foundation.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm getting into more detail and to train them, because where else would they learn it? But like I said, going to a Bible college, it will not necessarily give you anything. In America, if you go and maybe you do Bible college and you do teacher education, you can use it. If you do that and you go back to Germany, you can't use it.
Nope.
And so there are certain things where, as a German, you have to consider, okay, why would I do that if I don't make money? Afterwards, I don't make more money, and then I have to find a job again in the world to do that. So we want to offer that while they have to live their lives, work their lives, and simultaneously they can take courses and get actually the Bible education.
What I think is interesting is, because it's not accredited, they're working on maybe in the future, but at least right now it's not accredited. There is no legal or economic value to what we're doing. So when people are taking these extra classes, besides being full-time parents, full-time at work, and being involved in their local church, it's really just for the love of God's Word.
Yes.
That is the only reason they're there.
Correct.
And so that is something cool. That means if someone is actually attending those classes, they're there on their own behalf because they want to.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, if you're studying in the States, you get degrees, recognized degrees. But even when we were both in college, something that I had to keep telling myself is, it's not simply homework. It's not simply a degree.
Yeah.
It has an intrinsic, eternal value, the stuff we're doing right now.
Yes.
And we had a young lady in our church here in Eichstätt, and she was studying at the EBTC in Berlin. And I would sometimes bump into her at church when she was doing homework. I live above the church.
Yeah. You're above the church.
I'm above the church. And she had like a moment of peace where she realized, getting a certain grade is actually completely irrelevant, isn't it? I said, yeah. I mean, yes, you want to pass the class, but what you are learning here is you're studying God's Word in depth, and that in itself has value.
Correct.
So it's nice to get a good grade, but that's not important.
Yeah.
What's important is what you're actually learning and getting out of it.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so it is nice to see how things have developed throughout the years in our churches, and how the North TDZ and the South GBS, how it has developed and what they offer, and how they are serving the local church and ideally training up the next generation. Like I said, we have talked about that before, but until we have found those people, Mark, I will still bring it up. Because how can we train our men to become the next leaders? And I would see there is a need for it, but not only the theological need, also the understanding that God is at work and that He wants to use you, and so yes, we want to see that happening, and we want to see the theological aspect happening.
And if we're working on the theological aspect, or that is being fed and provided through the TTZ or the GBS, then that character development, that character sharpening and preparing for ministry, that happens then in the local church with the local pastor.
Yes.
And so those things always have to go hand in hand. You can't have someone just going off studying somewhere from your church and you don't know what's going on or what he's being taught, or you don't get any feedback from him. So it's always important to be tied into your local church even when you're studying theology.
Yes, and that's what I liked about Faith, because it was very closely knit to the local church. You had to find a local church, and you had to be active in the local church, and you had to work through it. And that is what I think is very important. Now, there's a certain trust, because if I'm gone for 4 years, or if somebody from our church would now go to the States, I want to be in touch with the pastor there, because I'm sending my sheep over there, and I hope that they will find a local church where they can grow while they're at college. So, because you have to put into practice what you learn, and you can't do it on campus. That, again, the Bible does not say that Christ chose the body of Christ is not the college. It is the local church, but the college should serve the local church there.
And I keep wanting to sing mittlerweile, which means nowadays or anymore. I find it very interesting, and this makes me feel old, which should make you feel even older.
So I'm wiser.
You are whiter.
No, that's for sure.
But now we have young adults from our churches, mostly pastors' daughters or pastors' kids, that are going to the States to study theology.
Yes.
But they're from our local churches. And it's good to see, hey, they are there now too.
Yeah.
And they are getting plugged into local churches. And sometimes even picking the churches that are the ones that have the least amount of members and are somewhere off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And this was Johanna Weise was talking to me about this, because she's in the church with Andy Reyes.
Sorry.
For Johanna, sorry.
Yes.
Not for Andy.
I have not seen Andy in many years.
Yeah.
I just remember him from college. So therefore, Andy, if you're listening, all I remember is, Johanna, I feel bad for you.
And she was saying she will be able to be used right away. But then the downside is she's going to be used right away.
Yeah.
And so that's some of those difficult decisions that many of our pastors' kids from Germany need to make when they're in the States studying theology.
Well, I wonder if he's going to send somebody over then.
Andy Reyes?
Yes, just to show,
He has like 7 kids, so I'm sure
7.
Maybe not 7. It's a carload.
Oh my! Is it a 15-passenger van?
I don't think it's not that yet, so there must be under that. But when I was there last, one of his daughters was in a princess dress at church. One of the sons was in a Spider-Man outfit.
Oh my!
So it was a very lively worship service.
Yeah, I can see that. Yes, and I could imagine that Andy was wearing something like that too.
I spent a lot of time with Andy when I was in college, and this was back when I used to run a few times a week.
To the fridge?
No. just for fun. Go off on a run.
I have never understood a statement like that.
And the story goes that Adam Whitty from Charles City,
I know.
he was out for a run, and Andy just came back from working at FedEx and wanted to go on a run too. So, did he change into some running shoes? Nope. He just ran in his work boots, his steel-toe boots. And it did not take long for Adam to realize that Andy was struggling.
Well, yeah.
But as Adam said, Andy's Puerto Rican pride did not let him slow down or turn around. So he powered through, running a few miles in steel-toe boots.
Oh my goodness. Nope, and no.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, you know what, I'll meet you later.
Well, we started off with steel-toe boots, and we kind of ended with steel-toe boots.
Oh, nice.
Is that
Who needs a cold open if you have a...
hot closing?
Yes. Yes.
Is that how it goes?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. So, we will see you guys next month.
Or here. You will hear us next month.
Yeah, you will hear us. But you will see us in a few months.
That is right. You better show up. You better not cry.
Are you going to tell us why?
Aaron and Willi is coming to town. And we see you when you're sleeping. And we know when you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Maybe I should make a song out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I am quite the wordsmith.
The wordsmith. Well, according to ChatGPT, you are quite the contemporary music artist.
Yes, that, and also a soccer player and soccer trainer.
Where did that come from?
ChatGPT. But if you actually sign in with your account, then the real information comes.
Oh.
It has two different information.
Really?
Yeah. If you do it open source, well, it's all open source, but if you just do it without signing in, it actually does not use websites and all that.
Really?
And if you sign in, then it will actually give you real information. And it's quite detailed because it takes the information from America and Germany, wherever I mentioned online.
Yeah, and when my dad passed, I wrote the obituary. And so if you now Google or in ChatGPT type in, hey, who's Tim Brutkel? It sources a lot from what I wrote like 5 years ago.
Yep.
But we're getting off topic.
Just a little bit, but you can cut everything that you want.
Yes.
Never know.
So let's cut it out.
All right.
And hope you guys have a good rest of the month. Till then, stay frosty, my friends.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.